You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host Zeona McIntyre, aka Z Money. Z, how you doing today?
You've got a little run for your money there with the nicknames, because David Green was all like, if my name was yours, I would be Z-Mac. I wouldn't let anyone else call me anything else. And I thought it was a pretty poor nickname, but he was all about it. So
Z-Mac?
Just know, Z-Mac is coming for you, apparently.
Z-Mac? That is like...
Take it up with David.
Like, Z-Mac, that is like anyone with a last name that starts with MC is like the first letter of Mac. Like literally everybody.
I know.
So
it was kind of basic. A little basic bitch.
Yeah.
But that's okay. He was really excited about it. So
okay. Well,
go David.
Z-Mac is not happening. We are going to kick that right out of here. Eliminate that. Erase that from your memory. It is Z Money. I can't wait to see you change your Instagram handle.
It won't happen. Great. Well, today, guys, we have a guest that I think is really timely. As the market is changing, I think it's important that we get some more tools for our tool belt, and one of those being creative finance. So our guest today talks a bit about seller financing, and we go into a couple deals, how to negotiate some terms. So I think that's great, but I am personally geeking out on this. So if you guys get other good information or you want to tell us about your deals, please reach out on Instagram. I'm at Zeona McIntyre. Craig probably doesn't care. So, just come out to me.
You can always send me a message at the Fi Guy. I respond to almost everybody. And, one thing I want to say about Nate. Nate is an extremely smart guy, like one of the smartest people I know. And you're going to hear that in this episode. Like, he's extremely intelligent. Another great thing about Nate is that he is just a regular guy. He's not the super famous. Like, he's got maybe a couple hundred to 1,000 people on Instagram following him. And so if you give him a follow at the end and actually reach out and send him a message, there's a really good chance like he's going to help you. He's going to want to help you. He wants to feel that and so that's who you want to reach out to for help, are the people that aren't super crazy, that have all these followers and they have hundreds and hundreds of people reaching out to them, right? Like, find the people like Nate that are really smart, that haven't built their audience yet. And there's your potential mentor right there. Right?
That is
Provide
so
value.
True. It's so true because people get inundated and then they just don't have time. But someone who is like maybe in your local area that doesn't have too much else going on, it's not hard for them to say, hey, just shadow me during the day and see what kind of deals I'm doing. And you can learn a lot from them. So I love that tip.
Totally.
That tip.
Yeah. Thanks, Z. Let's bring Nate on the show. Nate Smith, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today, dude?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, we're excited to have you, and I'm even more surprised that you were able to take time in a busy October, like middle of hunting season, to come and record with us.
Yeah, no hunts this week. I actually leave on Friday for an antelope hunt up in Wyoming. That's the next one. I'm excited. That's usually a good time.
Nice. That's what financial freedom buys you is hunting whenever you want. So why don't we get into that story of your financial independence, and let's take it back like any good story, all the way back to the beginning. When did you first hear about financial independence?
I think I first heard about the concept of financial freedom or financial independence probably 19, 20 years old. I've always had this bent of like entrepreneurship. I think my first preneur was like diving for golf balls in the local like golf course pond, goose poop everywhere and all that stuff and selling them.
Ooh, yeah.
And I think somebody bought me. Yeah, that's colorful, isn't it, Z?
I liked first preneur. I was like, oh, I'm going to use that.
Preneur.
Yeah.
Wait. were you colorful, or were the golf balls that you found colorful? Because I love
No,
like
the
the pink
poop.
and yellow and the orange.
Z and I are
Those-
tracking. It's more the image I placed in the mind there.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, so
gross.
tell us about your
But
journey
yeah.
of collecting poop and golf balls.
Yeah, so somewhere along there, somebody bought me some books. I think probably my dad or my mom, honestly. And obviously, Rich Dad Poor Dad was in there at some point, and that kind of triggered some thought shifting. I think we all kind of like start off like, oh, we'll just trade our time for more money and more money and more money if we can. But obviously, if you've read that book, and I know both of you have, that kind of starts to question some things and make a lot of dots connect. And you go, this makes a lot more sense. And that was when that happened for me.
Okay, so you're 19, 20 years old. Are you in college at this time? Were you too cool for college, or what was your deal?
Yeah, no, I was in college. I went to a small state school in Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin at Eau Claire. Fortunate enough to play hockey there. Just held down some jobs, and then from there I went on to grad school, and that's kind of where my real estate journey kind of began.
Okay, what'd you major in grad school?
Grad school, I'm a pharmacist by trade, so it was pharmacy school, doctorate of pharmacy, and then undergrad I was a chemistry with a business emphasis.
Oh shit, dude! Honestly, I always forget that you're a pharmacist, even though that's like probably like your main identity. I always forget that you're a pharmacist. I think of you as Nate, the real estate investor, which is probably a compliment.
That is a compliment. I appreciate that. But yeah, I was a pharmacist for like 6 years. I still am.
So
I still hold my licenses, actually.
So I guess my question to you is, you read Rich Dad Poor Dad at 19 and 20. You realize like you don't need to trade your time for money. You probably don't need to go to school to get this big fancy degree. The rich dad is the person without the degree, without the job, without the entrepreneurship. But it sounds like you kind of said, well, maybe I don't want to be the rich dad, and you still went for this big degree. Like, why did you decide to do that?
Some of it I think like is rooted in like my parents like are in medical, and they wanted me to go on and to make them proud. Is long story short, like like they want to have a doctor in the family. So I rebelled hard and went pharmacist, like obviously way over here. So that, and then it just provided just a good, safe, stable income. I kind of knew like if I needed to have a fallback plan, maybe I should have a job that creates good, safe income. That's kind of the main reason for continuing on with the degree, even though I knew maybe I wanted some different things.
I don't know what kind of debt you have to take on to become a pharmacist, so maybe the numbers don't work out, but it's actually pretty cool for a financial independence person. Like I have a friend who's a pharmacist now, and I think he works like 1 or 2 days a week because it's such a high income job that he can just kind of like doodle around otherwise. And I feel like it's probably easy to get loans. For, when you have a W-2 like that, high income paying, yeah, it's easy to get homes.
Yeah, no, you hit it right in the head, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. Like I hung on to my W-2 longer than I needed to for that exact purpose. You just look so much better when you go to loan committee, right? Like you have this strong W-2 income, you have a cash flowing asset. Absolutely. And like you said too, there's certain jobs you can slowly step away from. You can't be half an accountant or half an engineer. But in the medical profession, you can be a 0.4 nurse or a 0.4 pharmacist. So that is, I thought about that too as I went into it. So I still, to hold my license with Walgreens, I have to work 4 hours a month. So I still dabble a little bit as well.
Cool.
So another cool thing about being a doctor, right? And for any doctors out here listening, there's this thing called like a physician's loan, right? We haven't really talked much about that. And honestly, I just know that it's a thing. I don't know the details. I think it's like maybe 0% down, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, now I haven't gotten one either, but yes, I know it's 0% down. I think what it's, I have lots of friends that have gotten this. I think the time in the life that the physician is supposed to use the physician loan is you get your doctorate, do the 8 years of college, then you go do what's called residency. And those residencies are generally 3 to 6 years for the ones that I know anyways. And a lot of times if you're going to move somewhere from 3 to 6 years, maybe you should buy a house. But you're just coming off of 8 years of school. You have lots of debt, no income to show, but they know you have a stable degree. They know you're going to you're on the path of getting a very high income job. That's when most physicians use the physician loan is what I've noticed.
Yeah. And I think there are no PMI. I'm not sure though. You'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know that either.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a physician, talk to your lender about that. I guess my question though is like if a doctor is 10 years into their practice, they're making money, all that, can they still use the physician's loan, or is it only for people that don't have that income yet?
I don't know that. I'd have to look that up as well. Because I don't even know if they were around back then when I came out.
We read on the wrong doctor.
Yeah, I wasn't smart enough to know about that loan option back in the day. I should have been.
Yeah, no problem, man. No, it's all good, dude. But let's get into like what happened. So how did you get your first property? Like what happened? You went through this 8 years of school. When are you buying your first real estate property? Is it in school? Is it out of school?
For sure. I was in school. I graduated undergrad and I went to Madison. And in between that time, I actually was a guide on a fishing boat in Alaska. And to go up there, it took a decent amount of money. And I would just ask these people like open-ended questions and just see where they led, because on the boat with, for all intents and purposes, multimillionaires all day, like ask them, what would you do if you were me, 21 years old or 22, whenever I was there. And a lot of things kept coming back to real estate. Well, I own rental properties. I do this, etc. So I came home and I knew I was going to Madison to start grad school. And I talked my dad into purchasing a house and renting out the bedrooms. There was a phrase made a few years after that. You might know the guy who made it. But did what's called house hacking. I remodeled the basement. I lived in the basement. Honestly, not the best investment from like my inventory of investments. What is a 3-bedroom house up top? And I lived in the basement. And then a couple of years, another buddy lived in the basement with me. So max, I did like 4 roommates. 2 years I was able to live for free, but it just kind of broke even, honestly. But we own that. I bought that in 10, and I think we sold that in 15. And the only reason, I made money is you bought anything in 10 and went to 15. That pretty good time.
Z, what does this sound like to you?
It sounded like
the for real deal.
This is the first deal you ever did as a real estate investor, intentional or not intentional. This one seems to be a hybrid of the two. And so tell us like exactly the details. So it sounds like you bought in 2010. You convinced your dad to buy it. So does that mean he got the loan? He gave you the down payment? And
sure. Yeah. We started an LLC. He had the down payment money. The agreement was that I would obviously manage it, fill the rooms every year, et cetera, do the leases, handle all the day-to-day stuff. I think we purchased for $275 and put about $15,000 into the basement, making a bedroom, bathroom, et cetera. And when we exited, I think we exited for $325. So not smoking whatsoever. Honestly, like I tell everybody that's my worst investment, but also the one I'm most thankful for, because I just learned so much about leases, how to deal with tenants, utilities, et cetera. Like that was like a 4-year crash course, and has led to obviously much bigger things, as you know.
And I think that's super important just to say is one, it had utility, right? You lived there, you were a student there, you're able to give your buddies maybe a cheaper place to stay. So there's some value there. But 2, no one gets rich off of one deal, right? Like you get rich in knowledge off that one deal, and then you can leverage that knowledge. And that's your best ROI is you can use that knowledge again and again and again and again and keep double dipping. And that's how you grow your portfolio and actually gain some serious material wealth. And it sounds like you were smart enough to recognize that and did that. So 2010 to 2015, you're doing this managing leases. You're basically just house hacking, right? Before it was cool, before it was a term, you figured you cracked the code before the rest of the world did. And so, do you graduate in 2015? Is that what happened?
14, I graduated. Okay. So I stayed there 1 extra year, living like a college kid, making a bunch of money.
So it sounds like you guys sold it, but then what did you do after that? It sounds like you've got this great education. And so did the real estate like bug bite you and you knew you needed to do something a little more intentional?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually, I started buying even before we sold that. I started buying a little bit heavier, I think in 13. I was almost out of school and I like to learn. So like I learned like a lot in those first 3 years, and I kept educating, reading books, listening to podcasts, etc. And I realized I did a lot of things wrong. So then I started to adjust my approach. I went back and I invested actually in like more cash flowing market, which was my undergrad market, the town of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And I think I purchased 2 or 3 more buildings before I actually graduated in 2014. And then I knew I had it kind of dialed, and I kind of went crazy from there.
So we've got like a lot of beginners on the show. And so it's good if we can go through slowly. It sounds like you have a really big portfolio. You've done a lot, but can you just kind of go into that very next deal What'd you buy it for? How'd you find it? All of that kind of stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So my next one was a duplex, a three bedroom duplex. And I learned, I knew I wanted to go cash flow more because this one was just breaking even in Madison, which is a much more white collar market. It's probably the jewel of Wisconsin. If you're going to pick a town to invest in Wisconsin, it's probably Madison. Eau Claire was much more cash flow, cheaper prices. If I remember right, I think I purchased the next one. It was 6 bedrooms for like $120,000. I know we just sold it last year for $248,000. So it basically doubled in 8 years or something like that we owned it. My main metric at that time, I kind of had a couple mentors, and I'm sure you guys have, and your fans are all familiar with what's called the gross rent multiplier. So we would take the rent times 85. And if I could get it for that or under, I could do some kind of creative things with financing terms. That's the equivalent for the audience of probably a 1.15% rule. So better than a 1% rule, not quite a 2% rule, like trash property.
Nate, you're a smart dude. Don't think that we're all as smart as you. But when you mean gross rent multiplier, that's just so you take the gross rents, you multiply it by X number, and you said that number is 85. So if the loose math here, $1,000 a month rent, 85 is a multiplier. You can buy the house for 85,000. Is that how?
Correct.
Is that,
yep.
Okay.
You nailed it.
And so, how do you know what that gross rent multiplier is?
Yeah, a mentor told me that was it. And honestly, what he explained it to me at that time, he's like, if you can get it at 85 times, that's what we would call it for slang, you should be able to finance the entire thing. And as you know, I'm a big seller finance guy. So 100% of it for 5% or less, somewhere in there, and you'll still cash flow. And that was kind of my metric for the next couple of years, honestly. That's how I bought properties. If it cash flowed, I stacked it, and I tried to put as much seller financing to make my money go the furthest as possible.
Well, I was just going to ask you, Nate, what is the, does that 85, does that change market to market, or is that market, does the market not differ there?
When I explain this to people, nowadays, I'd assume 85, like I said, it'd be a 1.1 or 1.2% rule. So better than a 1% rule. But in Wisconsin, I know Minnesota's like this. I know Texas is like this. Property taxes are insane. They're crazy. The house here that I live in Colorado is $3,200. This would be $7 or $8,000 in Wisconsin. It's stupid. So it's probably, that's what we need to do to get more a 1% rule nationally. So if your audience wants to think of it like a 1% rule, that's probably what this is more like.
Okay. And if you haven't heard what a 1% rule is, right, that's just saying that the rents or the monthly rents will be 1% of the total mortgage, right? And so just in case you haven't heard that one in a while.
What would you say to people that are saying, well, that's all well and good, but 1% is not feasible in my market? Do you think they're just not finding the right properties? They should be looking off market, doing creative deals?
Yeah, sure. It's obviously challenging in a lot of markets, and I've run up against that as well. Craig's an expert at that. Honestly, I pick his brain a lot for the Denver market. You just need to get more creative, whether that's Furnish Finder, midterms, short terms, to get to that closer to that 1% rule in a more expensive market like Denver or the Bay Area or Seattle. That's what I think you need to do. Just be more creative.
Yeah, I love that answer. So tell us a little bit about seller financing, because we haven't had a lot of guests on our show that do that. Can you tell us how you got into it? Did you learn this from your mentor? Yeah,
absolutely. I was just kind of brought up with it. I think when you start to buy properties from property owners that have a decent amount of properties or a big portfolio, it's kind of more common than you might think, honestly. I think I've taken a couple million, over $2 million in seller financing, whether that's land contracts or just down payment money. It's just, knowing how to talk about it. Again, Z, you touched on it earlier in the podcast. My strong W-2 income was a big part of that. They knew I was, had money to back it up, et cetera. I was good for it. And just coming across as a very authentic person, and, integrity is everything in this business. So I think that really helped. And I'm happy to, if you want me to dive into deeper, how I usually go about it, I'm happy to do that too.
Yeah, I'd love it if you could go into one of your early deals. And I'm assuming you had to negotiate the terms as well. So I think a lot of times people just think, oh, there's a price and that's it. But when it's seller financing, there's actually, how long is the loan term? What's the interest rate? Do I put money down or not? There's a lot of things that are different levers. And so that's why it can be really interesting, because you can pull these different levers in your benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit everything on the head. Like there's no rules, right? Once you get out of the bank box, there's absolutely no rules with what can and can't be done. And that's something that, what happened was early on, I partnered with a guy that was a little further in front of me. And the deal I'll talk about is a deal that kind of really opened up things. And I think Craig and I have, discussed this deal in the past. It ended up being 32 units. I think the purchase price was just north of 2.5 million. And what happened is we had a full seller carry, which means I got 80% from the bank. I got 20% from the seller. It was at 5% for 5 years. That was the term, and it was on a 20-year amortization, so roughly $500,000. Also on top of that, we asked for credits, and I think we walked out of closing. So I walked into closing with no money. I walked out with 32 units, and I walked out with $133,000 because I think we had a $75,000 closing credit, and then you got like prorated taxes, and I think we closed on the 5th of the month, so we got 25 days of rent and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool to do that. I think I was like 27 when I did that. I was like, that's a game changer.
And so what did that $75,000 go towards? Were you like, okay, immediately I'm going to put that into the property to renovate or improve?
Yeah, absolutely. We started renovating right away. There was 2 apartment complexes that were very mismanaged. We had actually managed them in the past. My mentor at the time had managed them for 8 years. It was a partnership that had kind of gone bad, and they needed to separate the properties. So we were very comfortable with them, but they had I think out of the 17 units in that apartment complex, they had 4 vacant. So we just started in on a couple of vacant units, getting some buzz around the apartment building again, decking it out, furnishing it up, taking pictures, trying to get the buzz going again. That's kind of where a lot of that went to.
And then to take it back real quick on the seller financing piece, and so again, you're relatively new real estate investing at this point, and so this may sound insurmountable to a lot of people, but this was just a giant step that you took that really anybody could take. You're no different than anybody else, and so you are, but you know what I mean. But the whole idea is that you can ask that you bought this property with nothing down, and so how was the seller I can't do the math of what year that was, I guess. But so Nate, why were you able, why was the seller willing and able to basically partner with you, right? You had to partner in order to basically close on this house, give him 80% and still take 20% from him and not actually bring that down payment yourself.
Yeah, one thing I've really noticed in seller financing deals that I've done is a relationship has to be established. It doesn't have to be a long relationship, but I've never successfully done it if there's an agent involved, honestly. So in this situation, the seller and my partner at the time, they had a very personal relationship. There was trust there, and he was a professor at the local college. He liked the idea. I think the payment to him was $4,500 a month. He loved having $4,500 come in every month after month after month. Plus he already had in that buyout, I think he got over $1 million. So he's I don't need $1 million. If I got 1.2, say, I don't need a 1.7. That really didn't do anything for him lifestyle wise.
Right. So there really isn't a way to do this without partnering, right? There's no way a bank would go for that, right? You can't get gifted down payments otherwise. Is that right?
You can't get gifted. I think there might be some loopholes in that, but the bank was totally on board. The bank knew exactly what was happening because the bank will make them subordinate, right? The bank always wants to be in first position. So the second, which is that seller in that point, he will have to sign subordination agreements with the bank. And, it was easier to do, honestly, this was in 2015 when we did this. It's harder now just because cash flow's, a lot harder to come by. It's harder to make a property cash flow at 75, 80% LTV versus 100. And that's what we were doing back then.
So if I've got this path right, you started with a single family home, then you went to a duplex, and then you bought this huge apartment complex. Is that true?
Yeah, I think there's one single family in there. I think there's 4 other units in there before I did the 32 units. Yeah. But yeah, kind of 1, 2, and then this big deal.
Yeah. Tell us what it took to do a mindset shift like that, because even myself, I've been in real estate investing for about 10 years now. And every once in a while, when I'm looking for a small multifamily, a quad or a duplex, I'll see like an 8 unit or a 12 unit and I'll go, should I do that? Could I do that? And then I'm like, no, stay in your lane.
You should do that.
But should I? So
No,
I'm
don't
just
do
curious,
that.
how did you go from that to that? Because there's probably some people here going, oh, I heard about the stack from David Green, and now I want to go from 4 properties to like 12 properties. You know, like they just want to get bigger and better. So how does someone do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, that's one of my bigger deals ever, even to this day. But to your point, honestly, my belief wasn't there at the time, kind of like maybe where yours is at right now. My mentor had the ability to get that done. So I was like kind of in a side chair, like a sidecar on one of those motorcycles, just riding along going, there's no way this is possible. And then we walked out and it kind of hit me. I'm like, no, anything is possible. And that really honestly set me up for what I've done since then, and just, knew that there was really no rules as long as I played by some cash flow metrics, etc. So I would really challenge you to think like, Craig knows I get pretty creative around like a balance sheet and a closing statement and seller financing. There's not a lot of rules. And if you can get out of those boxes that banks like to put us in, you can have some fun.
I love it. So if you guys heard it from him, I think it's really great to have first a mentor, but also just the people you surround yourself with. You can kind of latch onto their mindset. You can ride in the car next to them and see how easy it can be. So I think that's great.
Yeah, just tagging along with that, right? Like this was obviously an extremely creative deal. And was it just you and your mentor that kind of like put your heads together and figured it out? Or was there some books you read or some podcasts you listened to? Or like, how do you gain all of this knowledge?
For sure. I mean, there's no replacement for doing, obviously, but yeah, I was trying to read up on the topic. Like he would bring it up, and I'm just like, yeah, I need to learn about this. And he kind of like went me through the deal. Like my responsibility during that purchase was to negotiate with the banks, talk to the bank. I actually wrote a big letter to the loan committee because it is a unique loan to go through the board. Hey, I want 80% from you guys. I want 20% from the seller. So I actually had to like give a presentation to the loan committee just to be like, hey, like I'm a hometown kid, just looking for a start. Don't have any money right now, but I got a lot of good work ethic, etc. We know these properties, etc. So really having my ducks in a row, being 27 and not deserving that loan, if we're just going to be completely honest, right? But yeah, like doing whatever I could. I just didn't know enough at the time.
All right. So I'd love to kind of go into a deal that is a little more palatable for people. Do you have any smaller deals that you did seller financing on, like a single family home or a 1 to 4 unit that you could tell us how you went start to finish?
Sure. Yeah. Let's get it recent too. So this year, like I think like this will be really applicable for the next 12 to 18 months, in my opinion. Most people have one tool in their tool belt. I can do a Fannie Freddie loan. I can put 5 to 20% down and I get 80% to maybe 95% from Fannie Freddie. I think that those are the type of buyers that unfortunately are going to get very hurt in the next 12 to 18 months. And the experts, the ones with multiple tools in their tool belt that don't just look at a nail and go, I take my hammer and I hit this, are going to be the ones that win. Like a blanket statement will be the winners in the next 18 months will be the ones that don't use the bank for financing because they're going to be really expensive. So like this was deals in March and April. I've done 3 land contracts now. So one was a duplex, $270,000. What had happened is a duplex right next door, I think 3 doors down, had gone up for sale, I think for $250, got bid up to $270 and sold. I had sent a mailer out like a week before. I got 3 duplexes in that little development to call me because they all saw how much that one went for. That was an astronomical price. I was like, I cannot pay you that. Like somebody overpaid for that. But I was like, well, let's try to get creative on this. And I knew that it was 2 duplexes actually. Him and his wife both owned one. I knew that they were free and clear. So I said, okay, like if you guys will do a full land contract hold back at 3% on 30 years, I can reach up and touch that price. I can do that. And I knew that I could barely make a cash flow. I made him hold the note for 5 years. So I know that by 5 years, hopefully I'm raising rents, et cetera. And I should be able to refinance out into traditional lending. But you have to get creative like that. Otherwise, there's no way I was going to touch 270.
When you say land contract, Nate, you just mean a contract between you and the seller, right? There's no actual land. It's not like vacant land, right?
Yeah, the way it's been explained to me, I guess the way that I use the term seller financing and land contract, there's no bank involved. So the entire loan is through the seller. When I talk about, like, I guess land contract is a type of seller financing, but when I use the term seller financing, usually there's bank financing, and in a second position, I use seller financing, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That's just how I use it. I don't know if that's politically correct.
Okay, so they're holding the term the loan, and you have a 5-year term. Did you have money down? What were the other things that you had to do to lock this up?
Yep, absolutely. So I went to them. I should tell you kind of how I terraced it too. I said, hey, I just laid it out to them like, guys, that one down the street went too expensive. I do this for a living. This is where I think I just talked some sense into them, and they were willing to listen. I said, if I'm going to pay cash for this, I'll pay you $250. If you're willing to, the next one I did some seller financing. I said, if you'll do a 10% seller financing on top of the 75% I'll get from the bank, I can go $255. If you'll do the full holdback, I'll go $270. I did 15% down on that one, so that it worked out to a weird number because $270 and 15% is like right around $40,000. It's a not even number. So I went 15% down, and then their note was roughly $230,000, and I was able to just sneak those out. But they're nice new builds. I think they're built in 1998. I'm going to love having them in 15, 20 years.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, why would they want to rent it back to you that way? Or not rent it back, but do the hold back? What's the advantage for them?
For sure. I mean, there's a couple you can talk about. You can talk about the deferred gain. Obviously, that was a big one for them. They honestly liked the idea of having the consistent, I think the payment worked out to like $900 and some odd dollars a month for each of them. So it was roughly $1,000 to each of them a month. They wanted that for the next 5 years. They were right around 65, baby boomers looking to get into retirement age. They didn't really have a need for a lump sum of money. So I was like, hey, why don't you let me just pay you $1,000 a month? They did get, each of them got $40,000, so $80,000 up front to do that deal. And they're like, yeah, that's plenty. Like, I'd rather just take the monthly check.
So I've heard from people that sometimes instead of going with the interest rate, they say, hey, what do you want as a payment? And that's a way that they can figure out having like a 0% rate sometimes. How did you figure out your rate?
Yeah, absolutely. At that time, like I think it was April, so we were just kind of coming up. I wanted to give them the most rate possible. I kind of knew the number that would get it done, the 270, right? So then I figured out the most rate I could give them to kind of make it so I cash flowed as well. But you're absolutely right. And some people get hung up on that as far as they want the highest rate on the seller financing terms. So what I've done, like on tighter deals, like big deals, like say they're like, I need 6% on seller finance second money. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll go interest only on that money for 5 years. That'll really help. It takes the principal pay down on that little section away, but it increases cash flow, obviously. So if you're kind of up against that, like say you can make the deal work. Now you can't do it on a full land contract because you do want some sort of principal pay down. But if you're just looking for some seller money, why not make that interest only if they want more interest? Go ahead and give it to them, but just do interest only. It eliminates some of your payment and the cash flow is better then. So I've done that quite a bit too.
Okay, I think my last question, and we can kind of move on from here, is like, if you're paying interest and you're paying a high price because you're paying $270, like what is the real advantage to you that you just don't have another loan on your books?
Yeah, so I guess I've never that's something that I get asked a lot. I've only ever done, I think 6. So I still have some available. My wife has 9 available. No, she has 8 available. She's on this house as well. I've never maxed out my Fannie Freddies. I was misguided when I first started. I was told that as soon as you went over 10 properties, you could no longer get one. So when I did that big deal, that was 9 properties, like half the bank said, no, you're no longer eligible. And those are all commercial loans. So all my loans are commercial loans except 6 of them. And those are generally just live in, like I moved into them, the standard, and then moved out in a year, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no worry about me having it on my books. The advantage was I couldn't get 3% 30-year AM from a bank at the time for 15% down for an investment property. I think rates at that time were like 4.5 for an investment property and 25% down. So your cash on cash return goes way down. But if you can only do 15% down, it's still decent. plus you turn 40 grand into, let's just say it's just 270, we know that'll probably, the appreciation will go way up, but that's still not a bad return, right? If I can just do that.
Okay,
So
great.
I think one more question. Sorry, Nate. I think a lot of people, why they may hesitate to get into something like this is like, what if in 5 years the prices do go down? What if what if the world ends? What's like the plan B? Like, how do you refinance them? What do you do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a rule, like if I'm going to do over 20% seller financing, it has to be 5 years. If you figure out the math, and it depends on the the amortization schedule of the first mortgage, but generally a lot of my stuff's on 20 or 25 year AMs. That's just the way commercial loans generally are. They're not the 30-year fixes that like the Fannie Freddies that, a lot of your listeners are familiar with. Generally, if you work out the math, you will pay down roughly 20% of the two loans before the 5 years is up. So no matter if that's just equal in 5 years, you will still be able to refinance out of that money. Now, like, let's say like these ones are a pretty good example, right? Like I bought them in April. The market has maybe gone down or maybe will go down in the next 2 years. I'm betting in the next 3 after that, it gets up to at least where it was when I bought. And I think that's a pretty strong possibility. I'm 98% positive. But let's say the other scenario, let's say it goes 3 years into its strong appreciation and then goes down. Well, I still got the 20% I'm paying down over the 5 years and I got whatever appreciation. So maybe it came back down to where it was, but 5 years is a lot of time, a very lot of time. And I bet it's higher. That's the key. The key is to not have like a 2-year note or something like that where you're stressed. That's what I think.
I think that's the best answer I've ever heard to that question, honestly, of like, yeah, like you're literally paying off a quarter of the loan in those 5 years. So like worst comes to worst, you're just betting it stays even. There's a high case scenario. And even if it does go down 5%, it just means you're leaving 5% in the deal. You're bringing 5% more to the table. You've got other properties that could probably sustain that one in the time being. So great answer, Nate. Love that. Okay. I feel like so this deal, Nate, this was in 2017?
That big, so the 32 units was in 2015. The land contract example was just 4 months ago.
Okay.
So that was applicable to today's market.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. And so where does your portfolio stand today?
Yeah. We sit right now, I think across all the LLCs, like right around 180 doors. It's like, I was trying to look at it today. I think it's like 62 or 63 properties. I honestly don't know the number of properties. So roughly it's like roughly a triplex, right? If you do the math there, we do a lot of small multis, a lot of duplexes, a lot of quads, things like that. That's kind of my bread and butter.
And so 180 properties is a lot. What is your goal and like why bother with that many?
Yeah, absolutely. This has changed. I mean, I think like on anybody's journey to financial independence, right? The first goal is just to get there, and then things just kind of morph from there. I had a 10 grand a month cash flow goal for a while after I reached financial independence. Now I have this goal that I want to pass my years and age and assets under management in millions. So tomorrow I turn 35 actually, and I have 23. So I'd like to pass that by the time I'm 40. So I want to have 40 million by the time I'm 40 years of age. And I don't know why. I think David Green kind of talks about this more. Like I have the cash flow now. So now it's kind of more about building wealth. And wealth honestly is more built with assets and they appreciate. I don't know if it's not sexy when you begin because you want to just have cash flow. That's all that matters, right? To get free. But I think after you reach a certain level, you're like, okay, I want to start working on, more wealth that creating things. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So I know you're notoriously investing in cash flowing markets like Wisconsin and these cheaper price markets. Does that mean you're going to start investing in some bigger cities that have that better appreciation? Yeah. As you know, I've been dabbling. I'm trying to find something in Denver, and Kate really wants to get a mountain house out here in Colorado. So yeah, we probably will lean into those. I have this these two people on my shoulder, right? I have the biggest market and the best upside. I don't know. It depends which one wins every day. It's which one I feed more, right? But yeah, we'll probably start dabbling out here a little bit. Awesome, man. No, I love that, man. And you actually said something to me. Well, so for those that don't know, Nate and I were in Hawaii together for like a week. And Yeah, you said something to me where we were thinking about getting into commercial and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, dude, just like you work so hard to do the things that like now, and you've already made your mistakes, like reap some of the fruits of your labor, and like just stay in your lane for a little while and like build some wealth, and then once you get to a certain wealth, where you want to be, then you go ahead and you try that new thing once that's stabilized and you're good. And so it sounds like the season that you're in is that you have like the 2 to 4 units, the single family, like your market so well that you could probably do that in your sleep, or maybe it's not even challenging to you anymore. Maybe like, and you've hit your goal of cash flow. Now you're looking for that new exciting thing. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly it. Like I look at deals now that come across my plate for my market. I'm like, man, that's boring. But you know what? Boring's profitable. Like I should just be fine with that, right? But there's like a yearning, I think, in a lot of people like us that we want to be challenged. We want to go and conquer the next peak, etc. There's plenty of benefit to just staying on peak too. And I'm trying to tell myself that. My pod is really much trying to tell me. They kind of say that I got to get to 30 million and then I can start branching out. So I got a little bit more work to do, I think, right where I'm at. So I'm excited about that and filling out the portfolio.
Gotta get to 30 million. It's so crazy. I just like the difference between real estate investors and financial independence people. It's just like, there's so many people that are like, I got $1 million. That's enough. It's going to be enough for my lifetime. Why does it matter? But it's so interesting that you've got these kind of really lofty goals and people behind you. So it really just depends who you surround yourself with.
It's
great.
Just that simple life.
Yeah, and there's
right?
nothing.
I know.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm just a simple guy
on that,
living
though.
a simple life. Not that simple.
But I envy the person that, has 10 doors and that's enough. Like Chad Carson preaches that all the time. You don't need a lot of doors to be financially independent. I think the goal changes. Like, I don't know, I've heard some of the other people on your podcast, they talk about that too. Like your goal changes. Like I remember I probably hit financial independence like around 29. I had like $5,000 a month in cash flow, but that was just kind of like self-motivating to be like, it validated that what I was doing was working. So I just kind of hit the gas a little harder, and it just keeps evolving, unfortunately for me, but like, that's just the type of person I am. And I think like Brandon Turner talks about that. The people that get to financial independence, like we've made ourselves into like kind of beasts that just can't slow down. Like I can't just go sit for 2 weeks. That's not going to work for me. Like Craig knows, like I'm an active guy. I'm always doing things. And that sounds like a nightmare to me, is just locking me in a room and not being able to do anything.
All right, so I'm going to use myself as an example. I was telling people this at BP Gone last week. It's just like, I have 12 properties. I'm financially independent. I could totally stop. But I've been really curious about commercial or creative financing and stuff like subject to, because I think that right now, like you were saying, with interest rates being so expensive and people being a little more scared, there are some really cool opportunities to just take over other people's debt. And so even though I don't need that money and I don't need the strategy, even for my clients, I think it's a really cool tool to have in my tool belt, just so that when I do come across these off-market properties or desperate sellers, I can have just more ways to negotiate.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit it on the head. Is like subject to assumable debt, seller financing, that is going to be the name of the game, I think, to get good deals done or marginal deals done that other people can't quite get done in the next 12 to 18 months. I think you're hitting on the head, and where I think that comes from, and I don't know you personally like that well, but like you just want to be challenged. You have your 12 doors and like that is your next mountain. You're like, oh, this makes sense to me. Like I'm a smart person. This is the next step. Let's go do this step now. And I think we all get like that, right? But I envy the person. Ryan Murdoch comes to mind. Like he's like, I have enough, and that's it. Like I envy that person every day. Like I think that's awesome. There's what is it? The businessman and the Mexican fisherman. You guys know that like quote about the the parable. It's phenomenal, and I wish I could be like the Mexican fisherman. Like I lean too much like the businessman. So like every day I strive to be more like the Mexican fisherman.
But like, I think you could be, and I'm just going to like plant this little seed. I just wonder if there's some other part of your life that you're avoiding by working so hard in this one lane. right? Like this is the thing, this is my beef with GoBundance. I'm going to throw it out right now, is that they act like it is a holistic view of like 7 areas of your life, but everyone's there rah-rahing about finance and vocation. They're all about how much money am I making? What's my business looking like? But the thing is that we're like animals. We need to be spiritual. We need to be healthy. There's like so many other areas of our lives, our relationships. If that's like where you could be spending some energy. But that's just me being woo-woo from Boulder, Colorado. You can just tell me to shut up.
No, that's absolutely, you're absolutely right on that. Craig knows I just had a son, actually. I've never felt, I don't think I've told Craig this, more urgency to get done what I want to get done with whatever this is, because I want to spend more time with him. And obviously I have my wife, Kate, here. Yeah, absolutely. We try to check in and, make sure that I'm giving her what she needs and filling her tank. But sometimes, yeah, I fall short of that. Absolutely. We have to have weekly and quarterly meetings about, Nate, you need to cut back your work. But honestly, I don't work too much now as much as I used to. I used to really pin it back, but you're absolutely right, Z. I say that about, mastermind groups, GoBundance or whatever all the time, is they're the best thing in the world and the worst thing. Like, they're very motivating. However, you also just watch people's highlight reels, and that's never good. That's like social media, right? So best and worst.
Yeah, I got something to add to that too. And it's really easy, like in GoBundance and in these other groups, to compare yourself to other people, and because your net worth is right there on a piece of paper and all that stuff, and you have to just you can't work so hard year round so that you can show your net worth off to 400 people that really don't give a shit about you, right? Like all those people don't mean anything. Like, who are your real friends? Who are your real family? Who are you serving? Like, if it's not serving your wife and your kids, then don't do it. Right. And that's I think it's hard to like I can say it, but to act upon it and do it, that's something that I've been working really hard on this year. And I think I'm getting there. But I think that's a big thing. What's up, everyone? If you didn't already know, the FI team is growing and expanding. We are in 5 different markets now. We're in Denver, we're in Seattle, we're in Southern California, we're in New Jersey, and we are now in Idaho, Northern Idaho. So if you are in any of those markets and you want to come on board and help other people achieve financial independence in real estate investing, shoot me a DM. I'm at the FI guy, and I'd be happy to chat with you.
Amazing. And if you're looking for an agent in those markets, do look up the FI team, because they could be your next best friend.
We could be besties.
All right, back to you, Nathan.
Back to the show.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had one of those moments when we went to Hawaii, actually. Mike invited me. This was back in May. Craig, I and a couple other real estate guys went and hung out at this house in Hawaii. And he invited me, and to your point, Z, I was like immediately in my mind, Mike's like, let's go next week. It was like pretty short notice. I think we had like 2 or 3 weeks, if I remember right. Let's go hang out for like 7 days in Hawaii. And immediately, like, my brain's like, nope, I got 2 closings. I got this, all these things why I shouldn't go. And then Kate, my wife's like, well, why do you work so hard if we can't go do what we want to do when we want to do it? And I was just like, yeah, like, come on. It like really hit home. So yeah, we went on the trip. It was awesome. And we masterminded, we hung out. It was amazing. But yeah, I catch myself not serving like the right master is kind of what I guess I'm trying to sum up there a lot.
Do you have any final words of wisdom for everybody?
I guess like my big thing, like people ask me like, what is like the main guiding principle that I think like has guided me to success? And I think like the idea of delayed gratification, or if you can do something today that yourself 5 years from now will thank you for, if you can continue to stack those, whether that's assets or whatever, if you can be mature enough, I guess, to do that, that's going to serve you really well in life, no matter what area of life that is.
I love that. Love that. All right, now let's head into
The Final 4.
All right, so Nathan, what are you reading or listening to right now?
I got a couple on my, I usually use Audible. I got a couple right now I'm digging through. 10% Happier, I think it's by Dan Harris, mainly about meditation, things like that. Again, kind of like you were saying, slowing down. That's a big one for me right now. And then Small Giants, it's by Burlington. I don't know his first name, but basically that's about companies that have chosen to stay small and just perfect their niche, right? So those are the 2 I'm digging into right now.
I love that. You knew nothing about that. Staying
Trying to.
small. Not this guy.
I know.
He just wants to live the simple life, you know.
Simple life.
All right, Nate. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You know, it was along the lines of the advice I gave. It was just, Nate, like, if you can be emotionally mature enough to not seek gratification now, but later in your life, it will come back in spades. And then questions, and just being smart enough just to listen. And they would just be like, if you can just stack cash flowing assets upon cash flowing assets, you're never going to be disappointed in 5, 10 plus years down your life. And I think that's the best advice anybody ever gave me financially. There's obviously other more advice, like morally and stuff like that we can get into, because money's not everything. But for this show, I think that's kind of what we're looking for.
All right. Question number 3. What is your why?
I mean, the 10,000 foot phrase, right? It's to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, whenever I want. But that's kind of morphed as well. Like when it started as time freedom, now it's onto things like I want to travel with Kate, and I want to be my son's best friend every day. I want to be able to spend time and, mentor him or teach him all the time. We'd also like to get into some philanthropic work later in life. So that's kind of, we're trying to look to set things up so we can go down that path as well. But those are my main whys right now that keep me motivated. It's mainly my wife, my kids, my family in the future, and then my philanthropic hopes.
I want to just insert a little story. So I met this guy at a investor meetup here, and he had a kid that was going to college, and his kid was going to get a side job. And he's like, well, instead of getting a job before college to pay for college a little bit, why don't we teach you how to flip some houses? And maybe we can make enough money that we can pay your first semester. And they ended up getting more than enough for his first year, that summer before. And now he's got the skill, and he's in these business classes and being like, Dad, nobody gets what we know, And I think it's just really cool that he was able to give him that, and they made it a little bit of a game together. And it was just this bonding experience.
That's incredible. Yeah. I want to do something like that. I haven't put my finger on exactly what it'll be, but hopefully he'll know what to do when the time's right.
All right, Nate, final question. What is your superpower?
My superpower, it honestly is creative financing, and I work pretty hard. That's honestly it. I work stupid amounts if I have to.
You need to find your better way.
Oh,
really?
man.
Something
I
that's
think
fun.
that's such a cool superpower. Maybe it's because I'm just into creative financing right now.
I mean, it is that's what makes Nate the great elite person that he is. But something more fun, man. Come on.
Okay.
I just want you to say
can you
something
rub your belly?
stupid.
Can you rub your belly
Sure.
and tap your head at the same time? What's something you can do that other people can't?
So this is something that a lot of people don't know, actually. I have a slight hearing deficiency. So I when I was little, we do those auditory tests, they ding in your ear in your school or whatever.
Yeah.
I have a slight hearing deficiency in one of my ears. So I think that's morphed me into, I have a crazy good, and I've trained this, game eye. If we're in nature and you're walking with me, I'll be like, there's a deer, there's this, there's that. It's I like to hunt, and I do all that and stuff. Other hunters notice it. They're like, oh my God, how do you see this? I'm like, I don't know, but I attribute it probably because I use my eyes more than my ears because I have that slight hearing deficiency. So I guess that's my superpower.
That's a great
There
superpower.
you go.
That's what I was
For
trying
it.
to uncover. There we
All
go.
right.
All right, Nate. Good
Well-
job. Go ahead, Zeona. What's
Sorry,
your
I just
superpower?
wanna-
I know you want to share.
No,
Yeah.
I don't care about superpower. I did
Oh.
want to say that hunting is such a smart hobby for a financial independence person, because it's now you can just feed yourself. So there you go. Just cut that part of the budget out. It's so great. Look at you being thrifty.
Yep, grass-fed organic.
I love
That's
it.
You got an elk in your freezer right now?
Yeah, I got an elk already. So yeah, we kind of stay off the grid. Kind of Craig knows this. We don't really go to the grocery store for any of our meat. I go for chicken every once in a while, but we're pretty self-sustained on venison, elk, antelope, mule deer, things like that. So we try to do that.
Cool. All right, buddy. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm not the most active on social media. My tag on Instagram is at Dr._Nate_real estate. I'm on Facebook as well. We got a couple of websites. Prosperpaths.com is the management company. And then I'm working on a new one for Clearwater Capital, a new company I just started. But yeah, just check me out on Instagram. I try to post some stuff there. Hopefully you can find it useful.
Yeah, Dr. Nate _real estate. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Awesome. Check Nate out. Dude, thanks so much for coming on the show. You've enlightened a lot of us in a lot of different ways, whether it be seller financing, whether it be your hunting skills, whether it be creative things. Like you're crushing it, man. And I always love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. It's always great talking to you.
And that was Nate Smith. Z, what'd you think of Nate?
I was just really happy that first I brought some depth. We talked about mindset. And then I actually got to ask just a bunch of questions about creative finance that was totally selfish. I just want to learn more about that myself. I do think it'd be good for the listeners. But you know what, guys? Sometimes it's about me.
That's the best part about podcasting is you can ask people questions and just record them and then have everyone else who has your questions can hear them too. And then it's like, maybe we're providing value or something.
Maybe. Yeah.
But hey, we're all doing this for selfish reasons. I just love Nate. Again, like I said in the intro, he's just a smart dude. And again, reach out to him. I think he would answer almost anybody that would reach out. Again, because he is in that phase of he's still building his following and all that. And he's not quite at that 20, 30, 50, 60, 100,000 where he's got people reaching out every day. And so not to give him more work, he might yell at me for telling you this. But again, I think that's a good hack. And not just with Nate, but with anybody that you hear on a podcast that maybe only has a few hundred followers, those are the people that you want to reach out to because those are your future mentors. Z, anything else you want to add about Nate in the episode?
Well, no.
No. She's
I don't know
all
that I have
out.
anything, but that's okay.
You had so much depth. I wanted some more depth.
I know.
Okay.
You kind of, I don't know, you tricked me. Caught me off guard. I will say that I think it's really important for people to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. And I think that's something that he models well, is that he's not getting too comfortable. He's not saying, hey, I'm just going to do my 10 doors and chill, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what I like to say is that I'm scared of a lot of things, but I do them anyway. And so just getting out there, riding that edge, doing things that challenge you every day, that's how you're growing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
See, I can bring it back,
Yeah.
Craig.
You can bring it back. Yeah.
I have
bring
to.
it way back. All right. And so speaking of bringing it back, if you guys wouldn't mind, please leaving us a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever the heck you can leave us a rating and review. We totally appreciate it. That's how the show gets out to all the people that it gets out to. And again, we're trying to help everybody achieve financial independence in real estate investing. We need your help to make that happen. So leave us a rating and review and let us know when you do. Send us a message on Instagram. I'm at the Fi Guy. Zeona is
Zeona McIntyre.
And we'll see you all next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.